Power, absolute and unchallenged. For some leaders, it's a drug, a shield, a promise of invincibility. They believe they are above the law, beyond the reach of justice. They build palaces, command armies, and rewrite history in their own image. But history has a funny way of catching up. Before the world watched Nicolas Maduro, there were others. Men who stood on the world stage, certain of their strength, only to find themselves brought down, not by their own people, but by foreign powers. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the dramatic falls of leaders who thought they were untouchable. From the jungles of Panama to the palaces of Baghdad and the courtrooms of The Hague, these are the real stories of how power, no matter how absolute, can crumble. Let's start in Central America, with a man who was once a key ally of the United States, Manuel Noriega of Panama. In the 1980s, Noriega was a classic strongman. He controlled the military, the media, and the flow of money. For years, he played a double game, working with the CIA while also profiting from drug trafficking. He was Washington's man in a volatile region, but Noriega got too greedy, too brutal. His human rights abuses and blatant corruption became an international embarrassment. The relationship soured. In 1989, tensions reached a boiling point. The U.S. accused him of rigging elections and endangering American citizens. The breaking point came, and President George H.W. Bush launched Operation Just Cause. On December 20, 1989, thousands of U.S. troops descended on Panama. Noriega, caught completely off guard, went on the run. His escape was like something out of a movie. He dodged American forces for days, hiding in safe houses across Panama City. Finally, he sought refuge in the Apostolic Nunciature, the Vatican's embassy. He thought he was safe under diplomatic protection. But the U.S. military had a creative and highly controversial idea. They surrounded the embassy and blasted it with non-stop, deafeningly loud rock music. The playlist was legendary: Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle, Van Halen's Panama. For days, the psychological warfare continued. The Pope himself was reportedly furious. Eventually, worn down and with nowhere else to go, Manuel Noriega surrendered on January 3, 1990. He was flown to Miami, put on trial, and convicted of drug trafficking, racketeering, and money laundering. The man who once called himself Panama's maximum leader would spend the rest of his life in prisons in the US, France, and finally, back in Panama, where he died in 2017. His fall was a stark warning. Even the most useful allies can be discarded when they become a liability. Now, let's travel to the Balkans, to the heart of a conflict that tore a nation apart. Slobodan Milosevic, the president of Serbia. Dubbed the Butcher of the Balkans, Milosevic rose to power by stoking the flames of Serbian nationalism as Yugoslavia disintegrated in the early 1990s. He presided over a decade of brutal wars in Croatia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. His regime was linked to ethnic cleansing, massacres, and the siege of cities like Sarajevo. For years, the international community tried diplomacy, sanctions, and negotiations, but Milosevic was defiant. He saw himself as a defender of the Serbian people, a historical figure destined to create a greater Serbia. The turning point was the Kosovo War in 1999. After his forces launched a brutal crackdown on ethnic Albanians, NATO, led by the US, intervened. For 78 days, NATO planes bombed Serbian military targets. The pressure was immense. The economy was shattered, and his own people began to turn against him. In 2000, Milosevic lost a presidential election, but refused to concede. This sparked the bulldozer revolution. Hundreds of thousands of Serbians flooded the streets of Belgrade, storming the parliament building. His grip on power was finally broken. The new pro-Western government in Serbia faced a difficult choice. They were under intense international pressure to hand Milosevic over to the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia in The Hague, a court established to prosecute the very war crimes he was accused of orchestrating. In a dramatic secret operation in 2001, Serbian authorities arrested him and flew him to the Netherlands. It was a landmark moment, the first time a former head of state was brought before an international court for war crimes. Milosevic, ever the defiant nationalist, refused to recognize the court's authority and represented himself. His trial was a long, sprawling affair, as he cross-examined witnesses and gave long-winded political speeches, but he would never hear a verdict. In March 2006, Slobodan Milosevic was found dead in his prison cell from a heart attack, bringing a sudden end to one of the most significant war crimes trials in history. His fall showed that not even the shield of national sovereignty could protect a leader from facing justice for crimes against humanity. Finally, we turn to one of the most infamous dictators of the 20th century, Saddam Hussein of Iraq. For over 2 decades, Saddam ruled Iraq with an iron fist. He was a man of paranoia and brutality who used chemical weapons against his own people and invaded his neighbors, Kuwait and Iran. His cult of personality was everywhere: statues, portraits, murals. He presented himself as a modern-day Nebuchadnezzar, the heir to ancient Mesopotamian kings. After the First Gulf War in 1991, he remained in power, a thorn in the side of the West, but after the September 11th attacks, the political climate in Washington changed dramatically. The administration of George W. Bush accused Saddam of possessing weapons of mass destruction and having ties to al-Qaeda, claims that would later be heavily disputed. In March 2003, a US-led coalition invaded Iraq, launching Operation Iraqi Freedom. The Iraqi army, once feared, collapsed in a matter of weeks. On April 9th, the world watched the iconic images of Saddam's statue being toppled in Baghdad's Firdows Square. The regime was over, but the man himself had vanished. Saddam Hussein became the most wanted man on the planet. For 8 months, he was a ghost, taunting his pursuers with audio recordings and moving between secret hideouts. The US military launched a massive manhunt, codenamed Operation Red Dawn. They followed leads, interrogated his former inner circle, and slowly closed the net. Then, on December 13, 2003, acting on a tip from a captured bodyguard, US forces raided a farm near his hometown of Tikrit. They found nothing, but one soldier noticed something odd: a rug and some loose bricks on the ground. They pulled them away and discovered a small, dark hole, just big enough for a person. Inside, they found a disheveled, bearded man. It was Saddam Hussein. The man who lived in opulent palaces was captured in what was essentially a spider hole. He surrendered without a fight. He was handed over to the new Iraqi government, tried by an Iraqi tribunal, and found guilty of crimes against humanity for the 1980 massacre of 148 Shiites. On December 30, 2006, Saddam Hussein was executed by hanging. His capture, in such a pathetic state, was the ultimate humiliation, a final, definitive end to his era of tyranny. From Noriega's rock-and-roll siege to Milosevic's courtroom defiance and Saddam's hole in the ground, these stories serve as powerful reminders. They show that leadership built on fear and brutality is ultimately fragile. They demonstrate that when a leader becomes a threat to international order, the world can, and sometimes will, intervene. These men believed their power was eternal, their authority absolute. They thought they were the authors of their own destiny. But in the end, they became mere footnotes in a history written by others. Their downfalls are cautionary tales for any leader who believes they are untouchable. Because history has a long memory, and justice, though it may be slow, has a very long reach. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through history fascinating, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. See you next time.